Well, so the readings today are very much a continuation of the themes of last week, as you noticed. Luke, who's known to be particularly the gospel of and for the poor, once again has more on that subject. And again this week we have the prophet Amos, who is again this week talking about this callous attitude towards the poor. Let no one ever claim that the prophets don't speak about social issues. And by the way, we just heard the parable in the gospel. They have Moses and the prophets, there you go, to talk about these very themes. And hopefully we'll listen better than the rich man. So maybe last week it was more about money. You cannot serve both God and money, and more about how stupid it is to trust in money, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Just like you, us, we're here today and gone tomorrow as well. And we can't take it with us. And that's not the true riches. So it's foolish to trust in it. And you can't serve that and God. Today, I'd say it's more focused on the relationships, or lack of relationship, that we have with one another, especially different social and economic classes, as we see. And that's how they define themselves, really. Did you notice that in the gospel there is the rich man with no name, just a rich man, whereas the poor man, who seems to matter less, he's the one that has a name, Lazarus. But that's what the tendency for rich people is. I'm a rich person. Never mind what else about me. Even my name, who cares? I'm rich. And that's the way we tend to live our lives, put our identity, literally our identity in our wealth and our security, of course, and everything else, which makes us then not relate to the majority of people who aren't rich. So we create these distances, these separations, which are deadly, as we see. Deadly for the people that suffer from them in this life and the next. And this is all, the metaphor of hell and the bosom of Abraham. Those are symbols. But so is the chasm. The chasm that you can't cross in the gospel there today. God didn't put that there. We did. The distance is created by us already in our lifetimes. I'm 10,000 miles away from those people over there who are on the other side of the track at the very closest. So it's a symbol of the distances we create by our own arrogance and our own callousness. But why are we so callous and arrogant? A part of it is we don't really appreciate, why are people that way? Well, they don't realize their privilege, for one thing. The people who are born on third base, like our current president, people who are born on third base and then they think they've accomplished so much when they just get home. Not a home run, it's just start on third base. And then what about the people who start at home plate with 2 strikes against them? That's how they start in life. And there are plenty of people like that, right in our own city. It's not their fault. It's what they're born into. It may be a broken home, and or lack of employment, and or terrible education system, and or horrible prison system, and then no recuperation or rehabilitation after prison. It just goes on and on and on, and it's not their fault. Of course, we can make bad decisions, but everybody does at some point. For some people, it has a lot more consequences. And where is our compassion anyway? We're all in this together. We all come into the world naked and we leave the world naked. And we should have concern for one another. Instead of, never mind the minimum wage, never mind affordable health care, never mind taking care of the planet, which, we're trashing so that we can have the myth of continual growth, as Greta Thunberg said, Look, the only thing in nature that grows constantly without end is cancer. So why don't we learn a lesson from that? So why are we so callous towards one another? And I was reflecting on that. And we certainly are. I was reading a parable in a spiritual book today. This homeless person gets into the office of this magnate somehow, and he's there and he calls the secretary and says, "Look at this man. His shoes have holes in the toes, and his coat is torn, and his jeans are tattered. He probably hasn't had a shave and a shower and a good meal, in days and days. It's heartbreaking to see him here. So get him out." You don't want to be faced with that kind of humanity because it's too close to yours, if you're honest. I was reading an essay some months ago about this very issue, about do people really, really not care, and why don't they care? It's not just burnout. Some people haven't even started caring yet. Why not? And it basically said they really don't care. They don't want to look at it. They just dismiss it. And I think the reason is that that's who we all really are. We're all helpless and poor and wretched, and we don't want to face that fact. That's what Jesus said in the book of Revelation in those first chapters to one of those cities. He said, "You think you're so rich and powerful and needing nothing, but you don't know how poor, miserable, blind, and naked you really are." And that's what people don't want to face. Maybe that's one reason we have a naked man on a cross being executed as the God we worship. God is reminding us who we really are in Christ, not to be afraid of it, that we really are naked and helpless and poor. If God can be that, maybe we don't have to be so afraid of it. Huh? And we can have compassion on one another. But that's not the way males, particularly male humans, are raised, is it? We're raised to be strong and successful and in control and not one of those losers, You hear that all the time. And of course, we're all losers in the end. We're all helpless. We can't always be in control, even most of the time be in control or successful. So the males, the vast majority who don't succeed all the time, get angry and frustrated and bitter and violent and addicted and drunk and all that stuff because they're not what they're supposed to be. And they become violent. Toxic masculinity all over the place because they weren't given permission to fail. Just to be human. Not to be able to be successful and in control. And none of us is in the end. It all ends badly for all of us. The rich man and the poor man both die. So that's the secret, I think. Everyone has to learn by looking at the cross, if that's a good way, to realize the poverty of our own humanity. That we need to help each other and support each other amid all the failures and disappointments and trials and losses and betrayals and bereavements and everything of life. It's okay. We can all feel that and we can help one another. So that's the great good confession that the second reading talks about. It asks Timothy to make the good confession of faith, just the way Jesus did before Pilate. The confession of faith, let's say, in the God, whom that same reading goes on to describe as the one who can't be seen, which reminds me of the letter of John, which says, whoever says he loves God whom he can't see, but hates his brother whom he can see, is a liar. So if you want to give the good confession of faith to the true God, the authentic God, love God in your neighbor, and especially in your poor, helpless neighbor, because you are poor and helpless too. And it's okay. It's all unfolded in God's love. That's what the cross tells us. It's all unfolded in God's love. That goes into the resurrection, when there won't be any chasm left. We'll be able to embrace one another. We'll be in tune with the whole creation, which is a creation built on love, the love of God. Not the flames that torture us when we're not in tune with that love, in this world or the next. So stop trying to be so successful, or better, be successful in the way that really counts. Successful in love and compassion and support and authenticity and truth and honesty and acceptance and patience. And the way God is with you, the way God is with all of us, the way all of us should be with all of us.